Hello, everyone, and good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're joining us from. We're excited to have you here today for our webinar, Innovate by Going Paperless. Before we get started, we have just a couple housekeeping items. You'll notice that right now, all of the phone lines are muted. We are recording this session, and in an effort to make that recording as clean as possible, we will keep the lines muted. If you have a question, though, please type it into the GoToMeeting question panel, and we will get to those during our Q&A portion. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Sarah to get started.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Adler and I'm the Business Solutions Supervisor for the Forest County Potawatomi Community.
Hi, I'm Brian Galvitz, Systems Analyst here at Forest County.
For our agenda today, we're going to cover who we are and why did we go with the paperless approach, the different areas we are using and planning for OnBase. We'll take a closer look at one of our WorkView applications and use in our legal department that is helping in our efforts of file destruction and automation of the file process from start to finish, and the impact of how that innovation has made a difference. Who is Forest County Potawatomi? The Forest County Potawatomi Community, FCPC, is a federally recognized Indian tribe with primary government facilities headquartered on its reservation in rural northern Wisconsin. We have about 6 main service divisions supported by finance and legal departments, and we employ more than 500 tribal and non-tribal individuals. The majority of our offices are located in rural Crandon, and we have offices several hundred miles south in urban Milwaukee. Why did we go paperless? Well, we actually started the process of going quasi-paperless back in 2005 due to a scare with black mold in the storage area where all the tribal documents were being stored. So this led our council to take initiative to, begin the document management route. And then most recently, we had an environmental controlled archive room actually develop water leaks, which also resulted in damage to the records and artifacts in that room. That really just goes to show how important digital archiving really is. So it was very clear to us that the digitally preserving materials, documents, photographs, artifacts, etc., is essential to preserving our history should any disaster claim the actual physical object. So digital archives actually increases the utilization of the historic and recent items without compromising their security with tribal archives. I'm probably wondering how we chose OnBase. OnBase was actually most similar to our current solution that we had at the time, but it also provided several other modules that we will be able to deploy throughout the entire government. This will allow us to implement a single platform across the organization to accomplish consistent data, streamline our processes, improve our security and tracking of the documents, data, and their access, and finally, improve our IT's ability to provide support. A major selling point for choosing OnBase was the module WorkView and reporting dashboard. We first implemented WorkView in our legal department to replace the Access database. We needed to have a stable system as our Access database kept crashing out due to the age and the size of the database. We needed to provide multiple users the ability to perform search queries on multiple records at the same time. This led to the ability to create workflow for improved file opening and file destruction process. Today's demo will show you how we did this, but first, I will let you know what we are currently deployed, what we have in progress, and what we have for future plans. Currently, we have it deployed in insurance, court, IT, legal, community health, health and wellness, and a lot of the departments that had just document management capabilities, we're migrating that over from our old system into OnBase. And I'm talking about like the ones that don't have workflow or WorkView. Those are simple migrations just to get off of our old system. As you can see, we have deployed workflow and WorkView in the areas of those programs. What we have in process right now is our in compliance. We're working on an employee record using WorkView and workflow. And we are also doing a client services tracking using WorkView and workflow for our family services division. Our future plans are to roll out agenda management and motions manager for Executive Council. So agenda management actually had two features, which had the collecting of the agenda and developing the agenda, and then it had a minute manager so that the recording secretary can take what's on the agenda and generate the minute and generating the motion or the directive. And then we added a third component to our project to take all those motions and create a workflow for those motions so that we can follow up and ensure that the motion was completed. For the museum, they currently have like 7,500 historical documents scanned into our old system. And then they have a separate program using Empower, which is kind of like a GIS mapping system that correlates to a site number. And that site number is also identified on the document that is archived in the solution right now. They would like to put that on a single platform and integrate with Esri. So with one click, they can look at the map and automatically bring up the document per site. And then our finance, we need to implement an account payable automation solution. And I'm going to hand it over to Brian to do the demo.
So one of the very first WorkView applications that we started with was for our legal department. And what got us started was our legal department basically was charged with tracking everything that went through them for every single case needed to be approved from a legal perspective and was currently being tracked from an Access database. So they had over 50,000 records of every case for each of the different departments throughout our entire tribe and organization that the legal department had gone through a legal review process. That they had basically had these physical files either through the northern office or the Milwaukee office that they were keeping a record on inside of their Access database. And they were trying to track where these physical files were actually located. Were they in the northern office or were they in the Milwaukee office? And then as the cases were being reviewed, being worked, being processed, coming to an actual case closure date, when the case was then closed, they would go through a manual process to take a look at what type of case it was, which department it was for, what date it was closed, and then they would go to a review committee, pull up from the Access database, do searches, and then they would destroy the physical files from the committee. So what was actually happening is this Access database, as they were trying to search, and it had been growing in size and it had been being maintained by both parties in the northern office and in the Milwaukee office, they were finding that they were beginning to have inconsistencies in their data. Staff in the northern office would save off to one location, staff in the Milwaukee office would save off to another location, and then they'd try to reconcile their data back together. Or they would try to save, and as they were getting beyond 50,000 records, they would try to look for a case, and it was just taking them longer and longer to locate a case or a file, or to search by, what is this attorney working on, or where is all of the cases for this type or this category, or hey, we never considered that we're now moving into these types of categories, or this department has begun working on this type of thing. And it really wasn't meeting their needs and becoming flexible. And because they were starting to save it in multiple locations, they weren't able to trust the data, and they were starting to ask for it to be backed up in multiple times a day, and which backup was right, which one did they use, and it was starting to crash on them. So the legal department came to myself and other members of our IT team, and they said, what can we do? What other solutions are available to us? How do we make this highly accessible across multiple departments, highly searchable, where multiple people can be in it, where we can trust it, and we can get accurate reporting on it, and we just know that the data that we have in is the data that's going to stay the same from day to day. And that was where we partnered with Navient, our vendor, and we said, this is really a great opportunity for a WorkView application. And not only that, but we can really start looking at some of the workflow to help them automate some of their file destruction process as well. So at first what we did is we just built out a simple workview for them to capture all of the same data and the same information that they had simply been gathering from their Access database. And we started capturing their category, their subcategory. So what you see before you is the final product, and in no way did we arrive here at the very beginning. We basically started with just a few of the things that they had. We started with exactly what they had in their Access database, and this is the end result of a series of improvements. But we began by capturing the category and the subcategory of the types of cases and the types of files that they were working with, the file number, the file name. Again, because we are working in multiple offices, you know, what was the location that this file was located in? Again, that this is a legal department. They also use a specific software called WorldDocs. So later on, that was an improvement that we added, that they could use this to also track the WorldDocs location for where was the information of this particular file also stored in their other applications, so that the two could kind of work hand in hand and together. Also added in things for their important dates. When was this opened? When was it received? Were there any deadlines that went with it? When was it closed? When was it actually destroyed? The destruction year. So this was some of the things that went in so that we could start looking at those workflows, so that as we began to track it and said that we can start to automate things for you, we needed to be able to put some parameters around that, so that as we tracked the work that went with it, we could see the dates that the file came in, the file was worked, and that the file was closed and then needed to be destroyed, so on and so forth. And then the information that further came out of it, we established another workflow that I'll be showing some information about, was we automated their file opening and file assignment. So being that they have two offices, they have multiple attorneys that might be reviewing the file. There's different information that goes into that. So the description of the file, the comments, whether or not it's confidential, if the Attorney General needs to actually assign the file out to an attorney, or if it was one that was already requested by an attorney themselves. If there's a primary contact from within the organization that was requesting it, so on and so forth. All went in future enhancements to help them with the automation on further improving their process, so that we could then additionally automate other things for them. Additionally, beyond what Access was ever able to provide for them, once we put it into WorkView, the searching and the reporting that WorkView gave them was just a night and day difference, and a vast improvement that we were able to give them right away. So they were able to see almost immediately, once data was put into the WorkView application, they were able to run searches on first and foremost just their cases and their files based on file number and attorney or category and subcategory, as you would expect, but then how they were able to slice and dice and break down those categories so that they could see the types of cases that each attorney was working, and then break it down even further by category and subcategory, so that you could see it by a bar graph or by a pie chart. And then the Attorney General or the managers were able to break down and see exactly the types of cases that their staff are working on, and that they can drill into it. And then you can break it out by a date range, so that you can see, hey, is this attorney being overworked in this date, in this last month? Are things getting closed out? Are we opening up too much? I have, being that I support the legal department, one of the attorneys specifically works with contracts. And what they were able to do is they were able to see all the contracts that were open for greater than 21 days. So that was one that has developed specifically out of being able to put all of this information into the WorkView record. They were able to start coming up with even additional reports that they had never been able to pull from anywhere else, just because this data is now housed in here and all the different ways that they're able to slice and dice it. Whereas before, if they wanted that, they would have had to export it out to Excel, change it out, manipulate it, put it into a pivot table, all right out of the box, just put it into a filter, and then look at it through the pie charts and the bar graphs. All things that Access was never able to give them, we're able to do and just put into the search engine reporting, and it's just changed the way that they look at their information. So the first automation that, not the first one that we've made for them, but the first one that I'm going to show is the file opening automation. So going back to what I was mentioning about whether or not a file was confidential or whether or not it needed to be assigned by the Attorney General, one of the things that we very quickly realized for them was that when they opened up a file or a case, the support staff in the office were opening up that file, and then they would email the Attorney General the file number, and they would say, you know, this is the new file number that we opened. This is the type of file that it is. This is the staff that previously worked the file before. You know, if there had been a file of a similar type, who would you like this file assigned to? The Attorney General would take a look at it, any of the previous files that were like it before, and then email back to support staff who the file would be assigned to. Then the support staff would then email the attorney and let them know, hey, you've been assigned this file. They'd email the attorney's support staff, letting them know that they've been assigned the file. If there were any necessary permissions that needed to be assigned, they would email the help desk, again, reminding you that they were working with a couple of other systems, not just the OnBase, and letting the help desk say, hey, please give all appropriate file permissions to this attorney and this support staff. They would email the client within the organization that had requested that particular file to be opened and reviewed by legal. And then they would finally be done, and they would deliver the actual physical file to the attorney. You know, again, you know, we're not fully out of paper for some of these files. There is a physical file that is associated with this, and they would deliver it to the attorney at the end. There was so much back and forth between all of those processes. What we did is, when the case is open, the notification goes to the Attorney General, and he gets the notification of the type of file that it is, any previous workings that might have been, so on and so forth. And inside of the workflow, he gets the first ribbon that you see there. He can assign it to any one of his attorneys. Then the system determines if it's confidential, if it needs any file assignments. It notifies the help desk. The help desk then makes those file permissions for them right away. Then the system determines which file assignment was actually made. So who is the attorney? Who's the support staff that's assigned? It notifies them, hey, you've now been assigned a file. Here's where you can find it. If necessary, the help desk has already assigned all the permissions. And then it finally sends out the notification to the contact or the client, and it says, your file has been opened. Here's your attorney. Here's your support staff. This is all their contact information. If you have any questions, have a wonderful day. And then it sends it lastly to the support staff that initially opened the file, and letting them know, hey, everything's been done. This is who was assigned the file. The process is complete. So we basically automated the entire process. The only stop that it makes is to the Attorney General to give them the opportunity to choose his file assignment, and if necessary, to the help desk so that they can actually grant the permissions when needed. So no longer does the support staff at the beginning of the process have to track everybody down. We've basically eliminated, at last count, at a minimum of 7 emails for when there's no permissions, 9 when there were permissions, right out of the process right away. On the back side, we also automated their file destruction process. So in the course of when all those files are being worked, after the entire file review is completed, they mark the file as a case closed. The file goes into the destruction process, and at the point that it's marked at closed, it goes through a quick evaluation. And then based on that category, subcategory that was on the file destruction sheet, it'll then be determined of how long the retention schedule is. And it can be anywhere from 1 to 25 years. And it goes into the appropriate workflow queue, and it'll just be retained for those number of years. And then when that time cycle is up, it goes to a review notification, and then sends a notice out to the Destruction Review Committee, and it just says, this file has now been destroyed for the appropriate, or has been closed for the appropriate amount of time. I need you to just review the file and let us know if you want it destroyed or if it needs to actually be maintained for a longer period of time. Because it might not necessarily be that they actually want it to actually be destroyed. It might have been that this case needs to be reopened, or it might have become sovereign where it needs to actually be retained for a longer period of time. So rather than the file openers having to actually pull a list and generate a list month over month where they're actually handing that to the Destruction Review Committee, they're now actually being handed each of those on an automatic basis. Every month they get a list of, this is what's up this month based on all of the rules that you've laid out based on category and subcategory. This is what is coming up for review for destruction. So again, you can see based on the numbers of what's in that list, they have 20,000+ documents that are up for destruction, and many of them are just waiting their times of going through, you know, waiting for their 7, 10, 20, 25 years, waiting for their destruction point to just come up as a notification to say, I've gone through my elapsed amount of time and I'm ready to be destroyed. Additionally, with that, because it marks it with a date of when it needs to come up for destruction, they have a rolling calendar where they can see at any given time, this is what's coming up this month. I know that on this date, I'm going to come through my expiration, and this is the file that's coming up for review, for destruction. So the staff can actually pull those physical files from where they are in the file room and have them for the Destruction Review Committee for what the days that they meet, and say, here's the actual file. If you want to send it right through the shredder in your meeting, you can do so because we've actually pulled them. We're being proactive for you rather than reactive. So the Destruction Review Committee, rather than saying, hey, run down to the file room because we've reviewed and we have file 11C0208 and we want to destroy it, they can actually have those all prepared in a box on the cart and roll them into the meeting as they enter the meeting, rather than waiting and being told, this is what we want to destroy. And with that, one of the things that they wanted to do is they have a destruction review form that they slip into each and every one of those files beforehand. So what we did is we created a task that they just click execute task and create destruction review form, and it takes all of the information from that WorkView record that we already saw, and it pre-populates the form. So previously what the staff had been doing is they had just been opening up the actual WorkView record itself and copying and pasting each individual line of information, and then they had created their own form, and they would paste line by line, record by record, and then they'd print off a form. Well, what we did is we made it so that they could just pull a report. These are all the files that are coming up for destruction, and then they highlight them all, right-click, and then generate destruction review form. And it'll build out a bunch of Unity forms for them, and then those will be stored right in the system. So again, we gave them the option that they could go paperless, but right now they're still putting them right into those folders so that the review committee can then look at them and say, yep, we're physically signing off on these, and then they send them through the shredder. But we're pushing them to the point that says it's stored right in the system. You can see it. You have the form digitally. You can just click to accept and then go ahead and actually destroy it. But at the end of the day, where we've made an impact is the staff are able to use the system with ease. They can actually search. They can find things. We've talked to our staff. We've asked them where they actually are able to see the impact on their time. From what I've been able to get back from the support staff, they're claiming about a 50% reduction in time from opening files, about 650 hours a year in savings just from the file opening process. Also about a 50% reduction in time in the file destruction process. They don't spend as much time on the file destruction, but about 260 hours a year. So we're looking at about 910 hours a year in savings, or somewhere in the ballpark of about 40% of a full-time employee back into productivity that we've managed to save just in the automations that we've put in. That doesn't even count the reporting that we've seen, the reduction in errors, the accuracy, the fact that they're able to see their data, what we've significantly reduced in the emails, taken away from the manual entry, so on and so forth. But just the impact that they've gotten out of this, and we're continually finding different ways to tweak and adjust and improve this entire WorkView record. We've probably gone through 3, if not 4 phases where we've taken what we started with, just grabbing what was in Access and getting it into the WorkView records, putting one workflow and automation to it, adding a second, looking for a way to add a form, adding more views, more filters, more searches. It's been great working with our legal department because they just keep seeing new ways to improve on it and to just keep adding to it. The quote from the office administrator in our legal department has been, it's a 360-degree improvement. They now trust the system's accuracy. It helps their staff be more efficient. Overall, it's just a cleaner, easier system to use. So all in all, I thank you for your time and listening to what we had the opportunity to put in for our staff over at Forest County Potawatomi Legal Department.
Thank you so much, Brian and Sarah. At this time, please enter any questions you have into the question chat panel, and we'll get to those. Let's give everybody a couple minutes. All right, the questions are coming in. Have you worked with any housing authorities?
We have not yet.
Maybe
but,
soon.
If you're talking housing authority, that's usually like the grant-funded one. And our tribe actually has a tribal housing department, and we do not have HUD housing anymore here.
Who actually creates the WorkView and workflow? Is it an IT-only function?
So let's see, Navi assisted us with creating the initial WorkView view and helped us get the first workflow started. And then from there, I've expanded the WorkView views and then created the additional workflows. But from entering the records and the information into the records, the legal department enters the data into the records themselves. So depending on what you're asking there, we're creating the view and the workflow, but entering the data into the system as far as the file information, the legal department is entering that.
I just want to add on to that. Yes, IT manages the development and the building of the workflow WorkView applications. We do use our vendor heavily in all of the development efforts. The goal to have IT control that is to make sure that we have a single platform and the sharing of data where data can be shared, the sharing of documents where documents can be shared. Because we don't want to make duplicated databases across the organization, because that just will not help with our reporting. So like if you're working with housing or family services or education, you want to be able to pull reporting out of that when you're talking about the clients you serve. So we do not have our customers in our department build anything out of OnBase. We build it with our vendors' help, and then once it's built and developed and roll it out to them, then they take it from there.
How much time was needed to go from concept to initial production?
So for our first phase from concept to production, this one got off the ground relatively quickly, I believe. And forgive me, because this one was so long ago, but I think we got this one off the ground in less than a month. And now the additional phases, like adding the additional workflows or changing the views, have been even less time than that, because the things that we've done in WorkView themselves have been a rather rapid deployment. Some of our other projects have taken longer, but things that we've done inside of WorkView really have been rather rapid deployments. The workflow things have been a little bit longer.
How does this work with accounting software programs?
How does it work with accounting software?
Yeah.
We haven't done that yet. I mean, other than extracting our data for our employee records for our HR and compliance project, that's the extent we've gone to so far with our OnBase. We haven't done our account payable project yet.
So what is the security like so others see things that they only have right to see and not other things?
So the security aspect is the same as it is throughout anywhere in OnBase. There's a lot of opportunity to lock people out and lock people down or open it up as much as you want to. So we're using security groups. So specifically with the one that was demonstrated, the legal department is broken out into 3 separate groups right now. So there's the Attorney General, who pretty much has full access to everything within the legal realm, as it were. He can see all of the files and do whatever he wants within them. There's the file openers. They can create and view just about everything. And then I have a security group for just the general staff, and they can only view. But based on their requirements, they're all able to see everything. They didn't want it broken out where their staff could only see parts or not see other parts. But the permissions were broken out more on who could create, who could delete, who couldn't delete, things like that. But there are possibilities to, say you can only see certain things and not see other things. We just didn't go that route for this particular project.
All right, where are the documents actually stored?
So this particular one, being a WorkView record, is data. There's not actually documents, because a WorkView record is more about the data than it is about an actual document. Some of the other projects that we're doing are actually documents. So we do have the servers that have the documents, and it's just like anything else. You have the servers that have the documents that are storing it, and OnBase connects into it and feeds out those documents through the security that they have the permissions to. But a WorkView application is more centered around the data than it is the documents.
And we have one last question. Can this work with Active Directory, or do we need to build the security groups in OnBase?
So we are integrated with Active Directory. So all the user security groups that we have set up are synced with Active Directory accounts. So we are using single sign-on. So when a user signs on to their computer, they can then launch their OnBase using their same AD account, and then the AD user groups that we have sync in with OnBase as well. So we're managing all of our permissions in Active Directory, not in OnBase. They're just synced together.
Thank you so much, Brian and Sarah. You did a great job on the webinar today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.